Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth, along with my partner in the Motor City, George Eichorn. How you doing tonight, George?
Hey, good, Scott. Thanks for having me. It's wonderful weather-wise. A little warm here in Detroit, but nonetheless, it was sunny skies today and threat of showers passed, and it's opening day in Detroit.
Yeah, well, that's the theme, my man. It is opening day in Detroit, and how is opening day in Detroit being received?
Well, much different than in the past, Scott, of course, because number one, of course, none of the fans are allowed. I guess the police and the mayor's office encouraged people not to gather downtown, so you know as well as I do what a festive occasion. It's like a holiday in Detroit, opening day always in April when the Tigers, or late March, when they normally open, and it's just not the same. It's just not the same at all. I mean, not hardly anybody downtown to celebrate. There's a few of the bars are open, of course, but just nothing like we're used to here in Detroit when it's such always a huge party and a rite of spring, if you will.
Well, at least you've got one. Can't say that's the case here in South Florida. Unfortunately, the Miami Marlins had to actually cancel their opening day game, and in fact, two of them. They were scheduled to take on the Baltimore Orioles, but that's not going to happen due to the events that occurred over the weekend. And for those of you that don't know the events that took place over the weekend, there's been a COVID-19 outbreak here within the Marlins clubhouse. And so far, the numbers, you're looking at 11 players, 2 coaches, 13 people all told. So when we talk about what led into opening day, I know the Detroit Tigers fans had to be really optimistic, knowing that they won 2 of 3 in Cincinnati, weren't they, George?
Yeah, they sure were, Scott. Nobody really anticipated the Tigers winning 2 out of 3 or capturing that series, if you will, at Great America Ballpark in Cincinnati. I mean, the Cincinnati team is loaded this year. They got 3 of the best starting pitchers. They got Nick Castellanos now on their team, and of course Joey Votto and the rest of the hitters they got. And they whipped the Tigers' butts really good on Friday night, opening night. But then the Tigers roared back, and thanks to some home run power by Miguel Cabrera and Jacoby Jones and other guys, I mean, the Tigers really, captured those 2 wins on Saturday and Sunday, and making everybody a little happy, a little giddy here in Detroit, although it's just the start. But it was a positive sign. Spencer Turnbull especially was really tough on the mound Sunday, and Tigers' pitching has been pretty good so far, but tonight's another story, and it's not a good story for Detroit as the Kansas City Royals are taking apart Tiger pitching this evening, and it's just unfortunate. 3 guys that took the hill tonight, did not do too well, and that being Michael Fulmer and Funkhauser, and it's just not looking pretty tonight for the Tigers. But like I said, it's still early in the season, and hopefully the series in Cincinnati, where they won 2 out of 3, is more of the norm than just the exception.
Yeah, well, the Miami Marlins had a good first opening weekend as well, taking 2 of 3 over the Philadelphia Phillies. And when you think about the Marlins per se, they've had some pretty good, a few guys that stood out offensively for the Marlins were Miguel Rojas, who's really assumed the role of the captain of the team, a real leader. Corey Dickerson and Jesus Aguilar have stood out. So, and they had but there's some optimism here. And Don Mattingly, was really confident that his team could definitely make a good run, as a lot of us were that we looked at it. But unfortunately, when you have an incident like this, there's nothing you can do. I mean, right now, unfortunately, the team has had to cancel their 2 games. But I think one of the things that the Marlins released a statement today from CEO Derek Jeter, which said the health of our players and staff has been and will continue to be our primary focus as we navigate through these uncharted waters. After a successful spring 2.0, we have now experienced challenges once we went on the road and left Miami. I preface that because even though Miami is considered a hotspot, Dade County, they were doing all right in their own area. Now, postponing tonight's home opener was the correct decision to ensure that we take a collective pause and try to properly grasp the totality of this situation. We have conducted another round of testing for our players and staff, and our team will all remain in Philadelphia pending the results of those tests, and we expect later today. We will provide additional information as soon as it becomes available. So, take those thoughts and put them in perspective, George. Okay, and what do you think about what just took place here with the Marlins? Because, again, they were fine when they left here, and they went to Atlanta, and, I know Georgia has a big outbreak there, but then you wonder, did they get a lot of this? Did some of these results come in Atlanta or Philadelphia? That's a question that a lot of us don't even know right now.
Well, it's very disconcerting. This is not a good thing for Major League Baseball to have what just happened to the Miami Marlins, and obviously to a much lesser extent to Philadelphia having to cancel their game against the Yankees. This is not the kind of thing that Commissioner Rob Manfred and Players Union boss Tony Clark wanted. And obviously, I give the hats off to both Manfred, Tony, and then the players, the owners, to try to get this thing underway. They came up with an unbelievably large document of understanding things that should be done. But looking at some of the highlights, the players are not doing all the things, Scott, that they agreed to do. I've seen some high fives. I've seen some touching, patting guys, on the back or the shoulder or the arm, some high fives. I see guys sitting too close to each other in the dugout. And I know it's difficult because those dugouts are not all big, especially if you're the road team. But I'm just thinking out loud here that, it's a lot different with the bubble that the NHL and the NBA is kind of promoting versus this more openness, if you will, of Major League Baseball. And it's quite unfortunate that this happened to the Marlins because, like you said, they've played some good ball this weekend. And Manager Mattingly, had them playing some really good ball in those games. And it's just kind of a shock. But I guess it's not totally unexpected, Scott. But, to me, it's a wake-up call for Major League Baseball. I mean, how much is this going to happen? How often is it going to happen? And really, how many games can you keep canceling or, trying to make up with doubleheaders down the road or whatever you're going to do? This stuff is serious stuff. And I'm just really disappointed that it happened, I guess, so soon in the new season.
Well, you think about the Marlins opening day game, Sandy Alcantara had a really fine outing, going 6 2/3 innings. He only allowed 3 hits, and the Marlins defeated the Phillies 5-2 in that contest. And as I look at the whole thing, and Jesus Aguilar had a coming out party as well by hitting a home run in that game. And Miami obviously won their opener for the first time since 2014. So, that was a pretty good first act by the Marlins. It really was. But this Sandy Alcantara, he's a stud. He is an absolute stud. And Jesus Aguilar has a chip on his shoulder. He wants to prove that, that he is an all-star caliber player, that he was with the Milwaukee Brewers. I know he played for the Tampa Bay Rays, and Miami was a great place for him to have a fresh start. So, this team, while it probably isn't being viewed as a heavy favorite, they've got a lot of pretty good players on this team that, I think could, they've got a lot of players that they brought in. Brandon Kinsler to shore up their bullpen is another guy. I believe Jonathan Villar is on this team as well. So what they've done is they've added some pretty good veterans to go along with their young players. And when you talk about what you have here, this team, I view the Marlins as a real sleeper team. I really do.
Yeah, I agree with you. Nobody's really counting on them for much this year. I mean, like the Tigers and Baltimore and some of the teams, maybe the Padres too in that group. Most of them are picking those kind of teams for bad times. But like you said, There's good positive signs early on for Miami, and also the fact that, hey, this is just a sprint, a 60-game sprint. Anybody can win. We know that nearly 50% of the teams are going to make the playoffs. I forget what the percentage is that are going to actually make it because of the expanded playoffs, but a lot of teams are going to make it that normally wouldn't make it. But that being said, everybody's got a chance. Everybody does. I mean, hot starts and or hot finishes, even a chilly start and a hot finish can carry a team. So, there's a lot of young talent there that Mattingly, Scott. I know he struggled for a couple of years down there, and he certainly has, I think a brighter future than most people want to give him credit for with the Marlins.
Well, Don Mattingly, to me, has been a pleasure to work with anyhow. I've gotten to know him better on these Zoom calls. But more importantly, you know what? Here's a guy that walked into a tough situation, he rebuilt, and name me a manager that's ever going to have an easy time with a rebuild anyways. You're not going to have an easy, that you're going through that in Detroit with Ron Gardenhire. You got a veteran manager walking into a rebuild, and, you got to be patient. As long as you know the direction that you're going in, that's what you're dealing with. And so how does Rob Manfred go? Where does he go from here? Because bear in mind, not only did the Marlins have that issue in Philadelphia, the New York Yankees were supposed to play 2 games in Philadelphia, and those games have been, I'll say postponed, and now they're going back to New York. And now the Marlins, 2 games against Baltimore, are not going to be in South Florida. And, here's a little irony about the Marlins and the Baltimore Orioles. And I'm going to go back in the history books a little bit. Many, many years ago, the Baltimore Orioles played at a stadium called Miami Stadium, and they used to be the Miami Orioles until they became the Miami Marlins. So if you want a little bit of Florida State League and Major League Baseball intrigue, to see the Baltimore Orioles come to Miami and play just about a mile or 2 away from where they used to play, the old Miami Stadium. That's an irony. But now the Marlins are going to be on the road even longer, taking on the Orioles up in Baltimore. So where do we go?
That's true. And, it's going to be a tough road. Obviously, they're still in Philadelphia. They haven't left Philadelphia, so the Marlins are still out east. I don't think it makes any sense for them to come home right now, but I'm not sure what Derek Jeter and the club is going to do. But I don't know if it's worth that while, because like you said, or correct me if I'm wrong, you said they've already shifted it to Baltimore?
Yeah, they're not playing the 2 games.
Yeah, that's right, because the Baltimore series was supposed to start on Wednesday.
In Baltimore. Here in Miami, Monday and Tuesday, the Orioles, so it would have been 2 here, 2 up there. Well, the Marlins aren't playing these next couple of days, waiting test results from everybody, and we have to find out where they stand. It's a really tough situation for them. I really feel bad that so many people are affected, but then you have to wonder, Commissioner Rob Manfred isn't pushing the panic button on it. Don't tell me what he's going to be thinking about come by the end of the week or by the end of next week. That's another animal altogether.
Right. He had his weekly conference call with the owners today, and they said they didn't talk much about it, which I find hard to believe. But this regularly scheduled call that he had, supposedly they didn't discuss anything about the possibility of canceling, either the season or part of it. And I don't blame them because it is kind of early, but my gosh, when you come down with it, I mean, these guys should be put in quarantine for, 14 days. I don't know what the recommendation is right now from the Center for Disease Control, how many days they should be quarantined, but these players should not come back anytime soon, Scott. Well, they really should. They shouldn't rush them back.
There is talk that a lot of these players are going to be out 14 days. So, yeah, you're right. They will. Yeah. But which means, and one of the things that Don Mattingly mentioned on the call on Sunday was he's hoping that they'll extend the taxi squad a little bit more. Because right now, the Marlins have definitely gone out there and they're going through it pretty quick. So, they're either looking for answers or this thing's going to get canceled inside of a couple of weeks. You hope not, because a lot of things look promising for a while. But let me tell you, And there's an interesting, and I'll give you a little interesting thing that just occurred today, and it came from the Cincinnati Reds Twitter account, that the Marlins have claimed pitchers Justin Schaefer, a right-hander, and left-handed pitcher Josh D. Smith have been claimed off of waivers by the Marlins. So they were both designated for assignment on Friday. Well, guess what? Miami's trying to make sure that that competitive balance thing doesn't come back and bite them. So if you can grab a couple pitchers at a time and you desperately need them, then more power to them. But these problems go deeper than what they are on the surface.
Well, what is the contingency plan for something like this? Can they dip into their extra roster players who are practicing now for Miami at their Florida spring training home?
Oh, sure. You have a total of 60 players in that pool. You do.
Yeah.
So, you got another 30 to work with. But the question is are you going to be bringing in players that aren't really ready? Or the whole idea with that taxi squad was bringing a player or two here and there when you need them. Nobody said you had to overhaul your roster because of the taxi squad. That wasn't the whole idea of it. And
that's true. Very true. You don't want to raid that. Plus the kids, most of them are not ready anyways for big league pitching in some cases. So, you don't want to raid it, but I'm just saying at least that was one good thing that they created was that extra expanded roster. And I know the taxi squad is only, 4 guys or 5 guys or something. Yeah, but the expanded roster, of course, the 60 that you're dipping into would have to be necessary in a case like this, I would imagine.
Well, bear in mind, you're going to have a lot of players on injured list anyhow because of COVID-19. They don't have to go ahead and announce these players, but ultimately you find out. So how deep do you go into it where, again, now, as I mentioned before, you have a lot of players now, a couple of coaches affected by this whole thing as well. So who's better off playing on opening day? The Tigers, or what were they trailing 12-6 to the Kansas City Royals, and the Marlins are tied at 0-0 for the next 2 days.
Yeah, the Royals continue to give the Tigers fits, and this isn't the first year this has happened. But like I said, it's unfortunate because, like we talked earlier, they got off to that good start in Cincinnati, winning 2 games in a row, taking the series, and of course, Fulmer, they got high hopes for Fulmer. They didn't want him to pitch too long today. Of course, Fulmer is coming off Tommy John surgery, the former Rookie of the Year in the American League, Michael Fulmer. So he hasn't pitched in a long time. Not that great of a line score. He's got 2 2/3 innings, 5 hits, 4 runs, all earned, 2 strikeouts, a walk, but 3 home runs Fulmer gave up. So not a good start for Michael. And the kids came in, Funkhauser and Burrows, and they both gave up 5 and 3 runs respectively. So that Tiger pitching right now is looking a little thin once you get past Matthew Boyd and Spencer Turnbull. And but again, it's early. And as you know, the Tigers have a good depth on their pitching staff down in the minors. And Casey Mize and Matt Manning come to mind, and Fiedo and Screwball. So they got a bunch of pitchers down there, but they try not to rush those kids to come up so soon.
Well, and don't forget you got a stud waiting in the wings with Spencer Torkelson. Now, obviously, they're not going to bring him up right away anyways. I think they want to, let him get acclimated to professional baseball. I believe he's in Toledo, right? Is that where the Tigers... They work out of Toledo.
Yes,
right?
Toledo, right. They're a AAA affiliate. The Tigers extras are all working out there. And I didn't know this, but those workouts are not open to the media. So you got to rely on the team to give information on how things are going. Kind of a weird situation where they're not letting the media, cover or, look at the youngsters working out. I don't know. It's kind of whatever. I'm sure that it's probably not a Tiger decision. Maybe it's a major league decision. I'm not sure.
You're not going to see any media allowed to any workouts. It is what it is. They want to keep media access is going to be what it's supposed to be, practically nil. But then again, in this day and age, who really wants to go out anyways? You don't know where you can get hit with this COVID-19 anywhere. I mean, I'm fine right now being in a very safe place, You have to be. We can't treat this like any other year. So for those individuals out there that would ever get offended that you're not being given proper access, I don't put it on the teams whatsoever. I figure it's an MLB policy that you just live with and hope for the best is what you try to do.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with you. And by the way, also pitching today for Detroit, a new kid they just picked up from the White Sox, Carson Fulmer. The White Sox gave up on Carson, and Al Avila, the Detroit general manager, gobbled him up and signed him. And the 6'4", 215-pounder did okay. Pitched one inning of scoreless ball for the Tigers tonight. Carson Fulmer, of course, no relation to Carson Fulmer. I'm sorry, no relation to the other Fulmer of the Tigers.
Oh, that's okay. I heard about that. Well, two Fulmers, what's the difference? As long as they can pitch effectively, it doesn't matter what their really name is.
Exactly.
But,
and so he's a starter, but of course the Tigers are going to use him in the bullpen. And ironically enough, Scott, you know where Carson Fulmer was born?
Where?
Lakeland, Florida.
Oh, well, it's a long-time Tiger fan.
Yeah, exactly. So Carson Fulmer, the former White Sox, now a Tiger, born in Lakeland, of course, the spring training facility of the Tigers. Yeah.
Yeah, for a lot of people that don't know much about Sandy Alcantara, this guy's a stud. He is.
Yeah.
This is a name that you'll hear a lot more about. Again, you know, like every major league team, you want to make sure you fill in your roster with veterans, of course, but and a lot of good young players. And the Marlins are like the Tigers. You know, they feel like they're in a little bit of a rebuild. But, you know, in a shorter season, that rebuild, throw it out the window. Everybody feels like they're in it from the beginning. And how you approach it, plus with a lot of the different rule changes, is a totally different animal outright.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier about, you know, Detroit's got a veteran manager with Gardenhire. I mean, this guy he's seen just about everything, any kind of lineup, whether it's the youngsters playing the kids like he had in Minnesota for many, many years. And then he got a lot of veterans there with the Twins. And of course with Detroit, he's kind of been on a little bit of a roller coaster, obviously rebuilding and having to see, aging stars like Cabrera working with youngsters. And then they patched the lineup the last couple of years with some of these guys that were free agent signing. So, Gardenhire is a good manager in this situation because, like we were saying earlier, it's a sprint to the finish. And, you got a guy like Mattingly in Miami, a guy like Gardenhire in Detroit. These guys are seasoned veterans, and they can bring a lot to their teams as far as experience and competitiveness go.
Well, let me tell you a little bit something about this Miguel Rojas, okay? This guy here, he came pretty close to getting the cycle yesterday. I believe he only needed a double is what he needed to do it. The Marlins, for what their history is, have never had a cycle, and yet they've had their fair share of no-hitters, and they won a couple world championships in their history. But this guy here, this Miguel Rojas, he is an absolute stud. He really is. And I mean, when you think about young players, he has speed, and he has a great attitude. He's viewed as like a captain type of player with their team, and I'm just amazed. I mean, when you think about this guy, in 3 games that he's played appearances, 10 at-bats. Again, we can talk about averages are being what they are. He has a 700 average, of course, 3 games, pretty hard to judge it by. But his numbers are just unbelievable. What he means to this franchise, I think they locked him up to a 2-year extension in September. But, again, let's just... Now, judged by what he's doing right now, to me, this player here is a player that I think a lot of people will be looking at. But let's track his opening weekend. In the opener, he scores a run, has 2 hits, okay, gets walked, has a stolen base. On Friday, he has another couple of hits, one of which was a double and an RBI. And then he And then on Sunday, he has 4 at-bats. He scores 3 runs in their big lopsided win. 3 hits. He has a triple, a home run, and of course, a regular base hit. So,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, those numbers are pretty unbelievable. He was a double.
Yeah, they are. That's a heck of a start for him. So, yeah, definitely something to talk about. Yeah, and do you think they'll keep him that low in the batting order, though?
It'll be fine. I mean, hey, listen, you know what? With the universal designated hitter, it doesn't really matter where you're at in the lineup as far as I'm concerned. The National League is getting their first taste of the designated hitter this year. So just to have another bat in there, I don't think it's a big a deal where you hit, to be honest with you.
Okay. Yeah, because, if he continues with that kind of power, they might want to move him up a little bit as opposed to batting him as far down and deep in the order as they are. But that, again, the time will tell. Like you said, there's plenty of time for that, and getting used to the DH is something that Mattingly and the National League managers are going to have to do right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, you can't judge a guy by 3 games, but what you can judge are by his skills, what he means to that organization. Again, Derek Jeter played for a team with the Yankees that was starting to develop their farm system. George Steinbrenner was never known as an owner that gave a whole lot of thought to developing within. He was always sold on high-priced free agents to win titles. Well, that's a good formula for a while, but in this day and age, Derek Jeter was a homegrown product, and as a result, he's bringing that philosophy here to the Marlins. Again, it's something that takes them a little while. So, they got to get past this first 3 days is what you have to do.
Oh, most definitely. And the Tigers are in the same boat where they've got a little bit of feeling out to do. They've got Gardenhire said he wants to use most of the roster, which is a smart move. Victor Reyes got his second start tonight, and Cody Mercer started at third base, made a hell of a play early in the game defensively. Christian Stewart is not off to a good start. Neither is Candelario at third. Those two guys, Stewart and Candelario, are really under the microscope this year. They've got to step it up. The Tigers are not going to have the patience forever with a couple of those guys that I just mentioned. And I know they're youngsters, but boy, they've had their chances the last few years now, and they just cannot assume that they're going to keep their jobs if they fail to hit. So Tigers got a couple of guys like that in Stewart and Candelario that they're looking at deeply. But the Tigers, the problem is the position players. They don't have the depth right now, but they have it in the pitching department. So I would imagine that in the next couple of years, Avila is going to be tempted to maybe trade away some of that pitching to get more depth in the infield and the outfield. But that's just my guess. I have no proof that it's going to happen. But if those pitchers turn out as good as they are in the minor leagues, they might have to make some moves to try to get some better help because besides Riley Green, and you mentioned Torkelson is still young, he's just drafted. This kid from Ohio State, the catcher, and the other kid, Jake Rogers, the catcher in the minors. Paredes, they got another guy down there, Paredes, who's got potential. Derek Hill, the outfielder, Derek Hill, has a lot of potential. So Tigers do have some help in the position areas, but not as deep as they would like to be right now.
Well, I'm looking over some of the Marlins stats on my end. Obviously, it's the team I'm working with at the moment. Yeah, and I look at Corey Dickerson, a guy that free agent signing. But Corey Dickerson, nice start. I mean, he had a home run that went to the I think the second or third deck over in Philly. But you think about it, he's had 13 at bats in 3 games. His average is .308. He's got 4 hits and a home run. And that's Corey Dickerson. This guy can flat out hit. I mentioned Jesus Aguilar, fresh start here in Miami, 12 at bats. Got 3 hits, 2 of those are home runs.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I mean,
Jesus, he's 30 years old. He's not as young as he could be, but he's still, he's gotten off to a good start. You're right.
He's got 3 RBIs as well. So, you know, we all know he's a power hitter. And as I go down that roster a little bit, again, I talk about Rojas, raving about this kid's speed. But, you know, let's not worry about the 700 average after 3 games. It doesn't matter. It's what he's meant to this team altogether. He's got 7 hits in 3 games to begin with, and nearly got the club's first cycle in their history. Brian Anderson, another player that's, you know, very that they're high on as well. Another 300 hitter. And, you know, again, we're not trying to dwell on the averages at all, but you got, what I'm talking about is you have a good veteran core to go along with some of the younger players. Is what you have.
Yeah, that's good. That's what you need. Exactly.
Right. It's just about.
Yeah. No, that's. Yep.
It's all about depth. So, you know, so let's continue to talk about the 2 opening days here and put things in perspective.
Well, again, Detroit is just unbelievable. You know, they're off the charts for opening day. I mean, you talk about your Cincinnati, your traditional opening in Cincinnati. Boston always has a big one. Baltimore was always a big opening day city. But Detroit, it's hard to beat them because of the raucous atmosphere, and it's just so difficult to see all of that taken away from the fans. Of course, you know, they're being smart, you know, not by gathering in large groups. Michigan's been, you know, it was high at one time on the charts for COVID, but now it's come down, and it just a slight spike. But, you know, the governor has been really hard-nosed about people wearing masks, and she's got these different phases, which she puts the different parts of the state into when she's ready to open things up. But I'll tell you what, a lot of small businesses are hurting big time. I saw one statistic in Detroit that, you know, over 50% of the small businesses are probably going to go bankrupt in Detroit and in the ring suburbs, if you will. It's really killing the small businesses right now. I talked to a friend of mine in the lawn cutting business, for example, and he says he can't even get his own family members to work because they get this extra unemployment every week. His own family members said, "No, Dad, I don't want to cut for you right now. Why should I? I can make the $600 plus the unemployment for the state of Michigan. You know, they make more money by staying out." All I'm saying is that it's created a very tough situation for a lot of businesses, not only those that want to open, but those that are open and can't find the workers that they need to continue. I know I drifted off of sports a little bit here with my ranting, but
that's all right.
I guess it all started with you know, Detroit and the atmosphere that we usually see on opening day. A lot of people are just they don't want to take a chance. They don't want to go downtown. They don't want to go, and they were kind of discouraged to go today, you know, by the city and by the police department. So, you know, we've been fortunate. We haven't had those big riots and stuff, but we've had protests. But you know, the Detroit downtown is just, you know, just dead right. It's dead right now compared to what it should be right now during the start of a baseball season.
Well, what you're telling me is basically a ghost town, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you know, the thing that boggles my mind, and again, I'll always wonder about this, is how this team left Miami healthy. Dade County, you know, where Miami's at, is a hot spot. They took all the precautions that they had when they left here while they were in town for spring 2.0, and then everything spiraled out of control when they made their first road trip. So you got to wonder,
yeah,
when, at what point or another, I asked this on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk earlier, give me a rough idea when you think they would pull the plug on the season at currently where we stand right now.
Well, I think, you know, I think it would have to be multiple teams in multiple cities, I guess, that would have an outbreak. I know that's not fair to just, you know, the rest of the league, but boy, if that starts happening where Manfred sees this happening in Miami and another situation breaking out over here and another one in Texas or somewhere in the Pacific coast, you know, a franchise out there. I mean, if it happens I don't think he's going to have any choice but to shut it down, because it's going to be, it's going to be so embarrassing to try, to cancel all these games and then still think you're going to have a champion and still think you're going to be able to even make up the games before you crown a champion, but make up games, and it's not going to be fair. Season's going to be cut short. Teams will be missing games. I don't know, Scott. I guess my gut tells me it would have to happen in multiple cities at the same time, I guess I'm thinking.
So give me a date, just a date.
Well, I think if it happens, it's going to be probably within the next 3 or 4 weeks.
So give me a date, just for the heck of it.
Okay, I'll go with August 15th.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, how about you?
I'm going with Sunday, August 9th.
Okay, well, a little bit earlier than me by 1 week, but yeah, I mean, that's quite possible.
I mean, face the reality that MLB looked at the possibility of having bubbles perhaps in Arizona, Florida, and Texas. Unfortunately, all 3 of those areas have become hot spots. I don't think that, and then of course we had this intense labor negotiation, and I give them the old college try for trying to pull this thing off. That way the business thing versus billionaires versus millionaires gets thrown underneath the rug so it doesn't look as bad. Fans won't look too negatively on them, so I give them a lot of credit for at least attempting to make this. And I know the Korea Baseball Organization, and I heard this today on ESPN, had there have been one COVID-19 test, the season would have been suspended for 2 weeks. Bear in mind, you don't have 30 teams in Korea as you do with MLB. Different story, different circumstances, a lot more money on the line. I'm just throwing that out there as a relative comparison. With that said, okay, I know that from what I've heard, the Marlins will be bussed up to Baltimore, because now you have to wonder about flying planes and how sanitized they are for their series. They'll have a couple of days to get up there. So when you think of an MLB team being bussed up to their location, what enters your mind?
Well, I like I said earlier, I mean, I give Manfred and the union credit for trying to get things going. But things could go bust really quickly. It was so nice to see a triple header by Fox. My gosh. I don't think Fox has ever done a triple header except for playoffs, so postseason probably. And ESPN did a Sunday night double header. Obviously they did a nice start to the season. The teams are really trying. I know that, but it's not something that they can just necessarily beat. I mean, I wish this COVID would go away. It's been really, really difficult. I know for you guys in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen a terrible outbreak, and of course in Texas and other places, as Georgia has been bad too, and there's other states as well. But I mean, I think the teams are probably trying, but I don't know. I just think that there's some players are still going to cheat a little bit, not try to do all the things they're supposed to do. And, it's difficult. It's very hard for them. I mean, my God, they can't even chew gum or sunflower seeds or anything like that. They're things that they're used to doing. And, heck, they're not supposed to argue with the umpires. I heard that too.
Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah, but they're doing it.
No, and the broadcasters, the home announcers cannot even travel to the road games.
Yeah,
I mean, baseball's taken extraordinary measures to try to make sure that this thing doesn't flare up. And unfortunately, like you said at the outset, we don't know where the Marlin players got it from. Did they bring it with them on the road? They pick up something nasty at the hotel they're staying at. Where was it? Philadelphia, you said?
Yeah.
I don't know. Was it in the food they ate?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Nobody's giving us Nobody's giving us any information. All I know is we're dealing with a war on a virus, and we don't know who the enemy is, and we don't have a vaccine to fix it up. I'll take this on a personal level. COVID-19 is so bad that I can't even go back to Detroit to spend time with my terminally ill mother. But what am I going to do? That's hard. I mean, but I've accepted the reality that that's how it is. So I guess the phone will have to work occasionally at FaceTime. So there's a much higher, there's a lot more involved in that. So with that said, let's take this on to the NFL. If baseball is struggling with this, do you predict there'll be any NFL season? I know they're talking about it, but again, baseball, college football, to me, are sports that will be the next ones scrutinized if baseball struggles with it, with a much smaller roster.
Well, I do think that football is going to have a situation that they, again, have to be really careful about. I mean, they've already canceled the whole exhibition season, so there'll be no preseason games. Some teams are already cutting down their roster because I guess the first roster cut is right around the corner, even though they really haven't even practiced yet as a team. Football, I'm telling you, those guys are tackling each other. They're sweaty all over each other. Spit or perspiration comes out. It's going to be really difficult for football. And not to mention, obviously, keeping all the lockers and the equipment and the workout room and all that stuff clean 100% of the time. So I'll tell you what, it's going to be tough for both pro football and college football, Scott. I don't know if we're going to be able to get those entire seasons to go forward either right now. Of course, you've already seen some of the cuts in college football. The Big Ten cut all its non-conference games out, and many other conferences had to do the same thing.
Well, not only did they have to do the same thing, a lot of conferences are going to be playing spring football.
Yeah, I know. That's going to be unfortunate for the boys, young men that play basketball and baseball in addition to football, which some of those guys do. Not a whole lot, but some of the smaller programs, mid-sized programs, they play two sports. And as you know, most of the time it's either baseball or basketball in addition to football. And it's going to be tough if we put football in the spring. That being said, they've got no other choice. If they have to delay it, they have to delay it. And and I know, because we talked about this before on your show, those revenue-producing sports such as football and basketball carry these universities so much so.
Yeah, the first domino to drop in the football one was the Ivy League, and then the Big Ten followed suit by eliminating the non-conference games. But the Ivy League's already said they're going to do it in the spring. So, and now obviously, I think the one sport that has a chance to pull this off is the NHL. I really do. 2 bubbles, Canada, low COVID, and the government in Canada has handled it really well. I think Edmonton and Toronto are going to do great jobs as hosts cities, and these players are smart enough to go out there and follow protocols. Are going to be all right. The NBA, have a lot of these other players go out there and get outside of their bubble, then there could be some trouble. WNBA, I think, will be fine, but MLB, I'm just kind of surprised that so much has happened so early, especially since a lot of them were very prepared in spring 2.0. They were. But when you're flying on planes, you don't have a bubble scenario, and there's so many things out of everybody else's control, and then you see an outbreak like this, it humbles you.
Well, yeah, definitely. And, it's interesting getting back to Canada. I mean, they won't allow the Blue Jays to host games because they don't want American teams coming in and out for short series. But I guess it's different for hockey, right? Because they're going into a bubble and they're going into what would you say? Obviously a training or practice mode first,
right?
Before they play games. I'm talking about the American teams that are playing in, as you mentioned, either Toronto or Edmonton. But I feel bad for the Blue Jays that they've not been allowed to host any home games at Rogers.
So,
and
yeah.
Now they got to play in Buffalo, which they're trying to bring that stadium up to, I guess, standards in the next week or two, so they can play home games at their AAA affiliate in Buffalo.
Well, I know that the Blue Jays will be playing some home games in Philadelphia against the Phillies, and they'll also be playing a series with the Nationals in Washington as well until they get the Buffalo Stadium up to standards for sure. So I don't know. This thing called the domino effect, unfortunately, I first heard of the Marlins outbreak when I was watching Golick and Wingo today when Jeff Passan of ESPN came on and then Tim Kirkman followed. And then all of a sudden, the stuff the Marlins were sending us, we got it earlier in the day, but, we don't know what has transpired the rest of the day with their staff, obviously. It's pretty hard to inform us when you have a lot of events going on that you can't give us information about anything you don't know. So this is no criticism toward the Marlins communications department because they've done a really fine job feeding us when we've had it. But, because I'm sure, obviously they were hoping to give us game notes on a given day like they always do. But right now there aren't any game notes to provide us here. So, but can only hope and pray that that organization is able to play like the rest of them. But, this thing, is Rob Manfred taking it seriously? Well, what do you expect him to do right now? He's putting up a front right now as though it should, but we'll see if he changes his tune by the end of the week or into what I consider August 9th, 2 weeks from yesterday. That'll be another story.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess that's something we could stay tuned on the next edition of the Sports Exchange next Monday night, right, George?
Yes, sir, Scott. We sure will. That'll be a good thing to talk about.
All right. Well, meanwhile, all right, George, why don't you go ahead. As we wrap up the broadcast, we can only hope that we're talking about the Detroit Tigers and the Miami Marlins as well as the rest of MLB a week from now. So, but meanwhile, George, this is your opportunity to go ahead and promote your book. Go for it.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So when you go to the South Florida Tribune website, of course, you would click under my profile there in the About Us section, and Scott and Candy have created a link to my book, Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air, which has been out for a number of years already, but it's still a great read. The great Ernie Harwell wrote the foreword of the book for me. Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. You just click on the link, and that'll take you to how to order a copy for yourself or your loved one. I believe it's $21.99 at Arcadia Publishing. And it's a pictorial book that takes you through Detroit sports broadcasting history. The great names like Van Patrick and Bud Lynch and Ernie Harwell, Paul Carey, George Pell, George Blaha, Frank Beckman, Jim Brandstatter, Ken Kell, Ken Daniels, and all the rest. So get yourself a copy and get one for a friend. Anybody that loves sports in Detroit or Michigan, you'll love this book. And again, the link is right on the homepage of our great website, the South Florida Tribune. So let's thank you again for giving me the chance to plug it, and look forward to selling a few copies there. Thanks again, Scott.
Oh, you're welcome. It just so happens yours truly, myself, I'm in it. I have a picture of Jimmy Connors and Muhammad Ali in it. And let everybody...
Yes.
And I should point out to all of you folks listening to Sports Exchange for the first time, George Eichorn and I began this show back in the 80s, and then we've been able to carry on the Sports Exchange for, back in the 80s. I've picked it up here on internet radio about a year ago, and now we brought it to this format as well. So I'm always glad to have George Eichorn and I. We were the ones where it all began, and we're keeping the incredible history. And not only that, George Eichorn and I have worked with Detroit Sports Media as well as the Detroit Monitor. We've done a lot. And now George Eichorn is also part of the South Florida Tribune, as he serves as the executive sports editor of the publication. So with that said, why don't you let everybody else know how they can contact you beyond the book?
Yeah, I can take your comments or questions or program topics at geichorn@yahoo.com. That's GEICHORN@yahoo.com. Or you can get my Twitter handle going. DSBA2 is my handle. So look forward to seeing you there as well as on this program. So thank you all.
You're very welcome. And to get a hold of us, you can follow us at Twitter at Tribune South, and I repeat, at Tribune South. Facebook, like South Florida Tribune. Instagram, you can go ahead and follow us on Instagram at South Florida Tribune. have a YouTube channel, South Florida Tribune. When I return back home, whenever that may be, you and I will be doing one of those together. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. You'll find a lot of our media distribution partners, among those the Miami Marlins, the Miami Dolphins, just to name a couple of them, are on that site. You can always follow their updates as well. And the email address, southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Shouldn't forget the Florida Panthers either. LinkedIn, you can follow me, Scott Morgan, out there as well. You are listening to the Sports Exchange, WSAN Network, and South Florida Tribune. And you can also find these broadcasts as well through Apple Podcast, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts. So there's ample ways for you folks to be able to find this broadcast as well as the other broadcasts in the program as well. So, George, once again, another great opportunity to talk about with you. I love doing this broadcast with you every Monday night because it's always like a trip down memory lane. Once again, folks, the tale of this broadcast is Tale of Two Opening Days. Detroit, the Tigers were able to play. Do you have an updated score on the Tigers score?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's Kansas City 14, Detroit 6 in the bottom of the ninth inning.
And an update here from Miami. The Miami Marlins 0, the Baltimore Orioles 0, and I can tell you that'll be the score tomorrow. But hopefully they'll be playing again soon once they're able to get a lot of these COVID-19 issues worked out. So on behalf of George Eichorn, my name is Scott Morgan, Roth the Motor City Mad Mouth, thanking you for joining us here on the Sports Exchange. And we look forward to having you being on the broadcast again next Monday night. Good night, everybody.
Good night.